COVID-19 created the perfect storm for eating disorders among young people. Western Mass News reporter Mary Wilson explains how the pandemic unmasked and exacerbated this public health crisis.
Layla Plant has been battling an eating disorder for years. She and her stepmom Karen check in at Walden Behavioral Care's Amherst Clinic, where the 13-year-old is getting help.
I was always afraid of the texture. I really still am anxious about crumbs. I never liked pizza.
Layla had always avoided certain foods, living on applesauce and oatmeal, but last year it came to a breaking point.
It really hit us in the beginning of COVID. She had a lot of, stress and anxiety with the changes in school and remote school, and she lost a lot of weight.
Layla's weight got down to a critical level, and Karen feared for her daughter's life.
She put on leggings one day, and they were falling off of her, and leggings, usually are a bit more snug. So to see that, and she had her eyes were sunken in, her coloring was very pale. She just didn't have a lot of energy. It was really scary to see.
Karen made the call for help, and Layla was put into a specialized program for kids with ARFID, Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder.
Is less about the way that they look and more about either, a fear that they might get sick after eating, or the taste of a food, or the look of a food.
Licensed clinical social worker Amanda Smith says Layla entered treatment at a time when monthly inquiries into Walden's 10 clinics doubled.
The world went through something really major, and how do we cope, right? For some, it's not eating, lack of appetite. Others, it might be eating more. And so we really saw how folks were trying to cope through this pandemic, brought up maybe some of those maladaptive coping mechanisms that they had just blossomed.
The CDC found emergency room visits for eating disorders doubled among girls ages 12 to 17 during the pandemic. In Massachusetts, 9% of residents will develop an eating disorder in their lifetime, and 10,200 Bay Staters die every year as a direct result of an eating disorder. That's one death every 52 minutes. Smith says parents should watch for subtle changes in behavior.
Suddenly now, your adolescent who loved to eat dinner doesn't want to eat with the family anymore. Maybe they're eating, by themselves in their room. They don't want to take their sweatshirt off in front of others, or as warmer weather comes, they're staying more inside or bundled up.
And though it may come from a place of concern, saying just eat is never the answer.
I think it can be really hard, though, to continually hear just eat, or it's just a burger, it's just a snack. It's not. It's so much more than that.
And Layla's condition goes beyond just being picky. Therapy is helping her get to the root of the problem and identify coping skills.
That's where I started to really change and develop into a new person.
She went from avoiding birthday parties and holiday dinners to trying and even cooking new foods.
Now you were telling me your list of likes.
I love rice pilaf so much.
So much longer.
Family support is key. As part of treatment, Karen got support from other parents going through the same thing.
It's hard to see someone you love struggle through an experience like this. It's painful, and that's why we wanted to help get our story out, so that way other people can understand that there is hope and that it does get better.
Her wish is that Layla will lead a healthy, independent life, and that the rise in eating disorders over the pandemic also leads to increased awareness and people getting the help they need.
In the second of our 4-part series on protecting your children, Western Mass News reporter Mary Wilson is digging deeper into the app's effect on teens.
This sophomore class at Chicopee High School is hard at work on their Chromebooks. It's the only type of screen time they're allowed at school.
I feel like crazy for saying this, but I actually really like it. At first I did not like the idea at all. I thought my world was gonna end.
The cell phone ban at Chicopee High School gives Juliana Gayek a break from scrolling on the most popular app among teens, TikTok, where young people can be sucked into a world of physical perfection.
There's a bunch of famous TikTokers that have a bunch of money, and they have all this style, and they are skinny and stuff. So it's definitely really easy to compare them, because you're definitely not as good as them.
TikTok's algorithm keeps young people scrolling by tracking what they're watching and liking, then flooding them with more and more of it. So if a teen lingers on a TikTok about depression or weight loss, they can be pulled down a dangerous rabbit hole.
It's hard sometimes to be scrolling on social media, and you see these skinny, pretty girls with all the likes, and there's not a lot of people that look like me personally. So it kind of messes with your head a little bit sometimes.
In fact, this possible link between TikTok and teens' mental health is under investigation by Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey, with a focus on TikTok's methods of boosting engagement and time spent on the app.
What did TikTok know? How did it design its algorithm? Did it know that it designed its algorithm in a way to make people watch for longer periods of time, especially our young people? And our strong belief is that they did. And the concern is they did that knowing that that increased screen time among our teens is actually increasing real depression, anxiety, even suicidality out there among our young people.
A study by JAMA Pediatrics found that as screen time increased, so did adolescents' worry and stress.
A lot of the time before bed, I'll just be laying there scrolling on TikTok, and then I look at the time and it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Green, who spends about 3 hours a day on TikTok, is part of the app's largest demographic, females ages 10 to 19, an age range when wellness content specialist Danielle Hill says self-esteem is still developing.
So kids are comparing themselves to people that aren't real. They're looking at things. They're not paying attention to what they're doing in school. And I do think it affects their mental health.
Kids ages 8 to 18 now spend an average of 7.5 hours a day in front of a screen. And students say increased use during the pandemic has affected them socially.
I'm definitely more awkward because I didn't have social interaction for like a year or a year and a half.
In response, TikTok has said they care deeply about the well-being of their community, even launching this digital well-being section in settings where parents can set a limit on time. And once a kid reaches that time limit, a passcode is needed to keep watching. Parents can also turn on restricted mode, which blocks some inappropriate content.
Keep an open line of communication with your kids so that they can come to you with concerns about what's happening on social media. Keep track of how much they're using their platforms like TikTok and really come to understand what's going on here.
Hill says when kids are hooked on their phones, they're losing out on social and emotional learning.
Well, school connectedness means they have relationships with their teachers, they have relationships with their peers, but if they're on their cell phone all the time, they're not getting that.
She says a mental health task force is looking into how curriculum can improve wellness while students find their own ways to cope with the negativity of social media.
I always say, just be kind. You don't know what someone else is going through, or if they see something how you see it or differently. So I don't know, just be kind to one another.
Attorney General Healy says her investigation is moving quickly, and if any consumer laws are being violated, TikTok will be stopped and held accountable.
Western Mass News reporter Mary Wilson investigates why educators are worried vaping has made an unwelcome comeback.
As signs of the pandemic subside in the classroom, evidence of a vaping epidemic remains.
Many of the people do tuck it inside their clothes, and so whenever they have the chance to just go in the bathroom, go into the big stall, hide, and just start doing it.
Seeing this in school only fuels Neonza Sharmanteen's work at the West Springfield Boys and Girls Club.
I feel like since they see me as being young, they're more likely to open up to me and share stuff that they wouldn't share with people that are older.
And her positive influence may be working. The latest survey of West Springfield students shows a dramatic decline in vaping. In 2018, more than a quarter of seniors said they'd vaped in the last 30 days. That dropped to just over 16% in 2021. Just 3% of 8th graders say they vaped in 2021, compared with more than 12% in 2018. While promising, the survey was conducted during a time of increased isolation and decreased access.
We don't have current data for this year. What we have been hearing from our administrative team and then the students who are using the bathrooms with people who vape is that it's happening again.
Collecting the data and tracking these trends is Ananda Lennox with the West Springfield Care Coalition.
And when we see students using, it gets younger and younger each year.
The CDC says more than 2 million U.S. middle and high school students reported using e-cigarettes in 2021, with more than 8 in 10 using flavored e-cigs. Though Massachusetts and the FDA have restricted flavored vape products, Lennox says manufacturers are a step ahead.
They're able to find this loophole where, since it's not nicotine, it's just not tobacco-based nicotine, they can still offer it with flavors.
The online company Puff Bar sells e-cigs with names like Strawberry Banana and Blueberry Ice, avoiding regulation by using a nicotine formula that doesn't fall under FDA rules.
They order them anywhere. They can get them on Amazon. They can get them from stores. Stores sell them illegally.
Jasmine Montanero's teen son struggled with vaping and learned the effects go beyond physical health.
A few of his friends are starting to have like depression, anxiety from so much nicotine probably.
A new study finds vaping can amplify the very same feelings causing Franza Mizimaka's classmates to pick up e-cigs in the first place.
A lot of us had to go through like the COVID pandemic by ourselves, and I feel like they're trying to like use an outlet, and this outlet they find is vaping. And though like it might be like a short-term fix in the long run, it can like impact them like physically, like horribly and mentally.
Lennox says the link to mental health has to do with how nicotine interacts with the brain.
What the nicotine delivery is doing is interrupting those symptoms of withdrawal, and withdrawal makes you feel anxious and stressed and stuff like that.
Other symptoms of withdrawal, like irritability, stomach aches, and diarrhea, can be signs your child is vaping.
Look for like broken chargers because they'll rip the ends off and recharge their vapes. If you smell fruity stuff and they say it's their body spray, it's probably not.
She says stay informed, have an open door policy, and like Neonzima is, help kids find a better way to deal with anxiety.
I think if they come to the Boys and Girls Club, there's other stuff to take their minds off of that stuff, and it'd be better for their health.
Franza is having an impact too, leading vaping prevention lessons for 6th graders.
If we're able to like prevent causing like these extra stresses that come with vaping, it can like help them a lot.
Our future leaders inspiring their peers to make vaping a thing of the past.
High schoolers report being bullied each year, but a new Boston University study shows bullying rates tumbled during the pandemic and haven't yet returned to pre-pandemic levels. In the fourth part of our series on protecting your children, Western Mass News reporter Mary Wilson is digging deeper, finding that young people are warning that cyberbullying is now prominent.
We have to keep talking about it. You know, it's one of those things that kind of gets brushed aside because nobody wants to talk about it.
Sarah Goff leads the local nonprofit Unify Against Bullying, which raises money for anti-bullying initiatives in schools. Over the pandemic, those programs came to a halt and bullying, like school, went online.
It's really dangerous because people can be anonymous, so they kind of have more freedom to say whatever they want. And even if you're not anonymous, you still feel like bolder, you know, just hiding behind a screen.
But a recent Boston University study tracking patterns using internet search data found a 30 to 40% drop in bullying and cyberbullying when schools went remote.
What was a surprise is that cyberbullying appeared to track in-person bullying. In other words, both declined at roughly the same rate.
Co-author Andrew Bacher-Hicks says this shows that in-person interaction is usually at the onset of both bullying and cyberbullying. Levels of both rose when schools reopened.
Even though bullying dropped during the pandemic, it remained lower than historical levels, even when schools reopened for in-person instruction.
This, he theorizes, could be due to more structured time in schools thanks to COVID policies like social distancing. But there have been drawbacks.
I don't know, again, if we've seen so much of an increase in bullying, but we have seen an increase in aggressive behavior.
Westfield Public Schools Superintendent Stefan Zaporowski says while there were fewer reports of bullying, with only 175 students disciplined for bullying last year statewide, compared to 941 in the 2018-19 school year, time at home and increased anxiety has led to more conflicts and outbursts in schools.
When you're in school, students are able to develop social skills and behavioral norms, and being out of school for a year and a half plus, we're seeing a deficiency there, and it is affecting behavior in school.
He says 1 out of every 3 students had some mental health concerns during the pandemic. The district brought in an outside counseling agency and hired 8 additional counselors. Still, there is a list of students waiting to be seen.
You know, there was a mental health focus that was beginning probably before the pandemic, but I think it has exacerbated that situation immensely.
Zaporowski makes a clear distinction between these one-off conflicts and bullying, which is repeated behavior. He says although it went unreported during the pandemic, it doesn't mean it wasn't happening. DESE did not return our request for recent data on bullying by airtime.
If your child doesn't share that with you or doesn't share it with us, then we don't know about it.
Like most districts, Westfield has an anonymous online form where bullying reports can be submitted. Goff says kids often hide the fact that they're being bullied, but parents may notice they've become more withdrawn or introverted.
Talk to your kids, you know. Don't sit there and be like, oh my God, is everything okay? You know, you want to just really make sure that you're having that open dialogue so that if something does happen to them, they're very comfortable coming to you.
Just as important, encouraging your kid to step in if they see bullying and knowing that those hiding behind a screen do not dictate their self-worth.
Anyone that's that's receiving those messages, know that the person who's, you know, saying those things to you does not matter. You know, the people who love you, your friends, your family, those people's opinions are the ones that matter.